Hello, welcome back to Writer Makes Videos. I am your host, Jess. I am an indie author and I make videos about being an indie author and learning how to navigate the publishing space as I go through self-publishing with my first my debut novel. So hello and welcome back. Today and just for a few things for those who have been here alongside me for a while now. I did not post a video last week. There's been a lot of changes going on in my life and just that needed some attention. So I was doing that. And I know that I have said in the past that I am like looking to post videos every certain day or so. And I think I feel like I can commit to doing one video a week is kind of the goal that I want to do, but this is kind of a hobby thing for me. I wish it was my full-time job, but being a content creator does not give me any sort of monetary value. So it's very hard, and there's a lot of work that goes into even just producing these kind of chill videos. I mean, with all of the little graphics and cuts and edits and things like that, it takes a lot longer than I had previously imagined. I had done some light video work before, and I have produced content before for other corporations and nonprofits and things. So I know that making content takes a long time, but really building a brand and trying to be on social media all the time and creating reels was not something that I ever knew that I was going to be doing. So I'm doing it to the best of my ability, and I thank everybody that has been alongside me for this for this journey. I'm not sure how long I've been doing this now. I think a couple of months, but it's been great. I've met some really nice people and everyone who's been really supportive of me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope to be able to continue to make content for you all that is both entertaining and valuable. So yeah, let's get into it. So today is another reason why my like video schedule, I wasn't really sure where to go next after I did the world building video. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. I was torn between today's topic, which I decided to cover, which is characters, how to build characters, versus how to write plot. And the reason that I was kind of hung up on it was I wasn't really sure which one would follow naturally after world building, and I had to sit back and just kind of look at myself and be like, well, what did you do? And that's the whole purpose of doing these videos, is to document my own process and hopefully share the experiences that I have gone through, and like hope that that helps people in their own writing process, any indie authors or published authors even. I guess if you need some indie author's advice for some reason, like feel free to take it. But yeah, so today I decided on character because after I did world building, and I believe I mentioned this in that video, was that I then moved into characters because I could use the world and the characters to kind of inform each other pretty simultaneously. So that's where we're headed to today. So this video is going to be not a little different. I'm going to be reading from a site called Milanote. It's not sponsored or anything like that. It was just kind of the best outline that I saw on building a character that was pretty, I don't want to say granular because that's not the word I'm looking for. I'm a writer, I swear. It was a little more step by step. That's a word. Yeah, it was a little more constructive than it was abstractness ish. So you'll see what I mean as I read through it. And the intention that I had was to utilize this for someone who was staring at a blank screen and not really sure how to build a character at all, maybe didn't even have an idea for a character. If you're still struggling, I would say after this video, if you've watched it and you're trying to find out if this video will help you actually build a character, if you're still finding yourself struggling, like at the end of this, after I go through kind of my process and the Milanote process that's been outlined in their article, then maybe go back and watch the world building video, because I kind of give pointers on that very situation if you're stuck with building characters or if you're stuck with building the world, kind of where to start and what to do. So going through in Milanote, they pull a quote by Ernest Hemingway, and I think this really sets the tone, especially for how I viewed this process And it's when writing a novel, a writer should create living people. People, not characters. A character is a caricature. And I really love that because one of the biggest struggles in writing, and this is why there's so many different sources of advice and things like that out there, is that building character and building character dialogue that is both believable and immersive is fairly difficult. Trying to create that sense of realism and emotion and connection between people that don't exist, and then trying to get those people that don't exist to be emotionally connected and real and immersive to your audience is a difficult thing to do. So hopefully I will be able to provide some insight. I have been told by my editor that I'm pretty good at doing dialogue. I'll probably do a more in-depth on how to write dialogue at some point. I think for now, just like I said, going through the process of exactly what I did to write my first novel is where we're headed. So this is just building characters for now, but we'll get there, I promise. So Milano, their article, How to Create Vivid Characters for Your Novel or Screenplay, and this is a step-by-step guide, and it's obviously highlighting their product, like organizational product, which I don't use. I just found this article and I thought it was actually kind of a good step-by-step sort of situation that helps people really understand like the very basics of building an individual for your story. So their number one is start with a character archetype. A character might start as a bundle of random ideas, traits, and plot points from a story outline, so it's important to bring everything together in one place. That's for their thing. A character archetype can help narrow your focus. There are 12 common archetypes or personas that we recognize across literature, mythology, and the human experience: the innocent, everyman, hero, outlaw, explorer, creator, ruler, magician, lover, caregiver, jester, and sage. You can go and look up all of these individual archetypes, and I suggest that you do, especially if you're very new to story building at all. I won't be going over each of those in depth because that would be a much longer video than I think any of you want to sit through. But the basic thing that I can say is I didn't necessarily start with an archetype in my brain. Like, I didn't see any of my characters as a specific archetype other than probably like ruler of some kind, ruler and hero, at least for your protagonist, especially if you're writing like some sort of nobility protagonist. That's who mine is. Tywin Braith is a queen in my book. Having that idea, I didn't necessarily follow the exact like ruler and slash hero archetype because that's not exactly who she is, but those are pieces that can define her. And so with character archetype, if you're very new to the process of building characters and you're very new to the process of like identifying those kind of tropes in characters, then I would say read up on them. But generally speaking, I would say that you will likely have a pretty good idea of what those tropes look like in stories from ones that you have read and TV shows that you've watched, movies that you've watched. So I wouldn't necessarily harp too much on trying to follow those tropes very closely. I would say instead, maybe identifying a character or a type of character if from any of those media that you have consumed. If you don't already have an idea for who you want your character to be, then go into those in depth and kind of see if anything sparks joy for you in that. Next, number two is add specific characteristics. Once you've defined an initial archetype, you can begin to shape the character and make them original. Consider the emotional connection between your audience and your character and work toward the desired outcome. You might find that switching the age and gender of a character can lead to very different responses from your reader. And then they go on to list a bunch of examples. I won't read them all. I encourage you to go and read the list for yourself. I will have it linked down below. Adding specific characteristics. Yes. So making sure that each one of your people that you are creating have specific just kind of feelings about things. Like, you don't want all of your characters to be super smart. You don't want all of your characters to be super tough and brawny. I mean, even if you're writing a story about group of like military folk or something that are all like super tough and things like that, like not everyone in a unit is going to be the exact same. That they most definitely are not going to be the exact same. They can share some characteristics. They can all be brave, or they can all be adventure seeking, or they could all be like very analytical. I mean, as a requirement of being part of the group that they are in, but not all of them are going to have the same kind of inner workings in their heads. So being able to assign characteristics to, at least when you're starting and you have, I'm assuming if you're starting this, you have kind of a main character in mind. If you don't, again, go check out my world building video. That might help. Or was I? Oh, right. Assuming you have a main character in mind, you probably are a little more comfortable with them. You don't necessarily have to have specific characteristics for all of your side characters just yet. You can find that as you begin to plot out and actually write the story. But having a main character and knowing what kind of internal workings they have is probably a good place to start. Building the backstory is the third part of this Milano article. Your character's backstory describes the journey they have taken up to this point. It allows you to explore their fears, weaknesses, and motivations and to define their purpose. You can explain the character's methods and evaluations, why they act the way they do, the choices they make, and how it drives the individual forward. Are they making progress toward their goal, or are they making things worse? Now, each character, and I've seen this as a recommendation in a couple of other articles, is giving your characters a goal. You might not know what that goal is right away, and that could be something that comes through developing your plot and comes through developing and writing the story. So I don't like to say to focus on a goal, but I do, and I think there's a Kurt Vonnegut quote. I don't remember it now, but it's kind of like, if give your characters a goal, even if it's to get a glass of water or something like that. I don't know how to explain this. Now, you might not necessarily have a goal in mind for your character at first that relates to the overall plot, but it could be something that they feel kind of deep inside of them. So, my main character, Tagwin's like internal goals are to do well by her people and to have a family. Those are kind of the two things that drive her, and protection of her family is another one. Doing well by the people that she serves, doing well by her family, protecting her family and those she cares about, and then having a family of her own is kind of what she wants. That's not what the plot of the book is about, but those motivations inside of Tagwin are the reasons why she does the things that she does. So having that kind of basis for each of your primary characters, like your main character, obviously. I guess it depends on how many like POVs you have, but I mean, you get the point. Your main characters should have those internal goals. Even your side characters should have some internal goals, because when you do write them, if it seems like they don't have anything to fall back on, they're going to feel really flat. They're going to feel like they don't have any stake in the story. And you want people to feel things for your side characters, because when things happen to them, you don't want your audience to kind of be like, well, I don't really know who they are, so that sucks, I guess. So don't do that. Give everyone kind of those internal feelings and goals. And I think the next one, the next one on Milano that I'll go into is give them quirks, faults, and flaws. And I think that applies for each of the people in your story. You're going to want to identify that, not in great detail, because I know it can be pretty cumbersome to do so, but having a really solid grasp. And I'll go into I'm doing this Milano bit first, and then I'm going into exactly kind of what I did, and you can choose to follow either or none, and we'll see how it goes. So number 4, give them quirks, faults, and flaws. Your character should come from an authentic place. That means that the character probably has some contradictions that make them a little out of the ordinary. If a character is too simplistic, it can feel cliched. Character flaws such as overconfidence, impatience, or recklessness can add new dimensions to a hero and make them feel more relatable. It can apply to side characters as well. This is where I want to caution people. I tried to find a better list that kind of felt the same, but it all kind of boiled down to this one. And I'm sure if there are more resources in the future, I'm looking to compile author resources and things like that. So I will put better ones out in the future. But for the sake of what I was trying to achieve in this video, this one served the best purpose. But they give examples on number 4, and I want to call out some, at least, where is it? The first one. I want to call out the first one. Obsessive compulsive tendencies, arranging things symmetrically, fear of germs. When you're writing a phobia or a mental illness or some sort of characteristic that is not one that you have either partaken in, one that you're a part of, or anything like that. So writing like OCD, like they suggest, obsessive compulsive tendencies. Do your research on writing OCD and the like. Don't write things and without doing any research, because it could be potentially harmful to the communities and the people within those communities that struggle with OCD and other sort of mental disabilities. Yeah, just be very careful, be sensitive about it. If you want to write about those topics, do get a sensitivity reader as you're going through, but do a lot of research beforehand just so you don't make the mistake of writing something that could be potentially harmful. The rest of them seem pretty standard, I would say, for some characters. There are some that are a little like impulsive decision making without considering consequences. You could take that a step too far, depending on the character you're writing. So just be careful about that. But generally speaking, it's just someone who's kind of rash and does things off the cuff a bit, is probably the tamest way to go about that one. But chronic lateness or forgetfulness or any of the other ones that they have listed, again, I will be linking this down below. Giving your characters more depth, noticing different quirks with them, or just giving them a random quirk and seeing how it plays out can honestly give a new perspective on the person that you're writing. And it might even bring more complexity to the story that you didn't anticipate having in the first place. And then number 5, giving your characters an arc. Knowing where you want a character to start and where you want a character to end is great, and having that kind of idea in the back of your head is awesome. But I also feel that you might find out that the original growth potential for your character is going to be different than what you originally anticipated. So wanting something for your character is good, but I don't think that it's necessarily and this is going to sound weird because you want to give all of your characters an arc. It's a very important part of the story, but I think it's more important to plot than characters specifically. The arc that characters are going through should be informed by plot, and it should be informed by all of the characteristics that you have given these people in order to either let them achieve those goals or to not achieve those goals. All of that is going to feed into the story as you write it. It's not necessarily something, I mean, I guess unless it's very important to use specifically. Again, this is all like a pick and choose how you want this to work for your story. Every writing experience is different. I am just giving my own advice. If you have like a specific, I want a character to do this and then do this and get to this point. If you have that, then great. And then the rest of the story probably informs that happening. But then it can feel, I would caution, just caution, that utilizing that kind of methodology would make it seem like the character has no agency, that they're just being informed by the things that are around them and that they have no control over what happens to them, that their destiny is just like already preordained and they don't get any sort of choice. Their weaknesses or flaws or anything don't matter, that they'll just kind of be strung along based on the goal that you, the writer, have set out for them. The rest of the Milano article is just talking about like the rest of their 8 steps or whatever it is, was just talking about how to organize it within Milano, and utilizing their app and things like that. So you don't have to follow the rest of it. I just thought that the first, like, what was that? The first 5 or something were good step by step sort of things. Oh no, this is different. Okay, so this is just kind of a summary piece. Okay, so just it kind of in summary, I wrote down a couple of things for the Mila note bit. That process is mainly used to identify a few characters or character ideas that you want for your story. Basically trying to find who you see when you're trying to create this world. And if you don't see anyone even going through that process, if you don't see any sort of character starting to form, try world building first. And again, I do have a video linked down below. With my process, when I finally got to the point of creating my characters, what I did was I did the traditional, I don't know if it's traditional. I did the character questionnaire bit. I did the, I think it's like 43 or 51. It's some random number. of questions, and I sat down with a couple of characters that I had in my head, and I went through those questionnaires trying to answer as best I could while trying to hear it in my character's voice. So I'll explain a little bit. So I wrote down some notes because this is kind of a weird thing to explain. I sort of took a meditative approach. I would sit with a character and attempt to remove from being myself, me, the writer, and pretend I was interviewing someone I never met. And slowly I could get to the point where my subconscious would begin to sound less and less like me and more of the voice of the person I was getting to know. So, really taking that idea that these characters are actually people, I think opens up a whole different perspective on writing them. I think what you could see in doing that is that it is just like it is an extension of yourself, and obviously everything that is informing the characters comes from your own head, but really taking the time to kind of remove yourself from that and looking looking at this blank space on the wall and going, there's someone standing there, and I need to figure out who they are. I need to start hearing them. I need to be able to understand how they would answer the questions that I have. And so I would do that often, and it was very hard in the beginning. And I changed quite a bit of some of the characters that I had come up with. I mean, even down to their names, it didn't. Some of them didn't stick. It was a process to learn to let go of kind of the immediate writery brain that was trying to buzz and work and create these answers for me, and instead learning to sit back and just kind of it is very meditative, I think, just letting these kind of answers come through as I was just writing. I would even, like, when no one was around, I would ask the questions out loud and try to answer in a way that didn't feel like it was me answering. I mean, whether that was like doing an accent or something like that, just getting to the point of realizing that it's, even though it is, yes, I know it is coming from my own head, like I am aware, taking that kind of voice and that kind of agency and giving it to something, to someone, and seeing it as someone, I just felt was super helpful. And I think it helped me identify pretty quickly the different nuances of each of the characters. I could hear either pain or frustration in their voice as they answered certain questions. I could understand their goals a little bit better because I started to see them as people that I had met or like friends that I had known for some time. And it started to become much more real as I did that. And the goal of that, one of the things that, as I began to see the characters I was creating, and as I got to the point of beginning to write them, my goal with it was that anytime I would write dialogue for anybody, it had to be distinctly their voice, as I had already identified it by doing this kind of questionnaire situation. And then once I finished, I took like lines of dialogue and I sent them to my sibling, and they weren't lines of dialogue that were already in the story. They were ones that I had just made up, and I said, "Who said this? Like, if you had to guess who said this in the story," and they got them right all the time. So then I knew that the distinctiveness of each person's voice in my story was shining through, that you could easily identify who they were based on the way that this piece of dialogue was speaking without knowing who it was and without having already read that piece of dialogue. It was like a totally random piece of dialogue, but my my sibling at least was able to go like, "Oh yeah, I know who that is easily," and they were right. So I think keeping that as a goal, and that's not something that I see as a piece of advice often. The dialogue in your story, and definitely, I mean, plot and the way that you write your characters doing things and stuff like that is obviously going to inform who your characters are, but taking the time to make sure that their voice is distinct, that they're like the very specific dialogue that they are using inside of the story is distinct enough to have them completely identified with it, I think is a good goal to have. And I think that really helps bring a depth to the individuals that you're writing in a way that obviously you're, at least in my experience, that your audience is very able to identify them with. Yeah, that was a lot. But I think I covered a lot of what, like, building characters and things like that. I didn't want to go too much into, oh, there's a couple of things, I guess. Okay. So quickly, I will have some links down below on writing physical traits for characters and things like that, specifically about writing about color. There is a Tumblr article that I referenced quite a bit that I will link down below in order to respectfully write about people of color inside of my story and utilize and learning which phrases and things to utilize and which ones to not. So, yeah, so I will link all of these down below, everything that I have referenced in this video, and probably a couple other resources that I might not have mentioned that have helped inform my process in writing characters. I didn't want to go too much into, I think I was mentioning this just a second ago. I didn't want to go into mentioning too much about how to build characters like on a physically based level, because I think that that's something that you can easily find how to describe characters, and you probably have a general idea. Even if you don't, like, as you're building the story, you'll begin to learn what your characters look like. So I don't think that that's something that I really had to go over. It was really just kind of the core essence of building a character is what I wanted to cover today. So I hope that was helpful. And again, if you're in the process and you're still like, I'm not sure that I can really build out a character, check out world building. Try to see if that's something that would help you instead. If and again, oh, my light went out. Hello. Okay, my light's back on. Um, so if you liked this kind of video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you again to everyone who has followed me on this journey, who has supported me in my YouTube career and my content creation career. And my writing career. This is all fairly new for me, but I really appreciate anyone and everyone who has even interacted with my videos. Or my light is keeps going out, so I think it is telling me that it is time to time to end this video pretty soon. But thank you so much for everything. I appreciate all of you. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.